Hello, 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 and welcome to this month's amazing lineup on the Her Version Impact panel. We have had close to 400 guest speakers on this platform and have a growing community of almost 1.2 thousand women. We are absolutely in love with everything that we are going to be talking about today. If you are interested in joining, the Facebook group that runs these awesome panels. You can find us at hernation.life. I am thrilled to have a female panel filled this month as we talk about leadership, something so many women are being challenged with in our personal and business lives. The conversation around this topic will be broad and will guarantee to educate you on so many areas in your life. Join us as we dive deep into our personal journeys and what we have created for ourselves in order to better our lives. There will be live QA for the next 2 hours, so get your questions in. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sabrina Victoria. I run a kick-ass community of women who are striving for greatness in their lives called Her Nation. I am a true entrepreneur who loves to build businesses and loves to help other women build businesses too. I have been in the self-development industry for well over a decade, and I am obsessed with helping people human better. We are excited to have you here watching us live and so grateful for these ladies who are taking some time out of their day to encourage, inspire, teach, and stay curious about how to improve their own leadership. We are all here and we all take notes. So if we're taking notes, we definitely want you to be taking notes. For those of you watching live or on the replay, if you have a notepad and a pen with you, it'd be super helpful for you to jot down some of the awesomeness that will be flowing this morning from these ladies. If you are new to this podcast, make sure you follow, like, and subscribe. Let's jump in. Female leadership that is the question we are covering today. We have all heard the challenges that women face at home and the workplace regarding leadership, unequal pay, difficult expectations to juggle home and work, limited career advancements, lack of mentors and support in the space of leadership, along with an army of women and men who are expanding into our society that are inclusive, open to collaborating and building each other up. Women are creative, they are strong, they are humans that tend to have high levels of empathy. Today, we are covering all the views of leading as a female heading into 2023 in a world of Me Too and feminism, and what it means to rise in our authenticity and not get wrapped up in boxes or stereotypes. Welcome, ladies. How are you this morning? Thank you so much for being here. I would love for each of you to introduce yourselves, starting with Tessa. The question I have for you is, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? And why did you decide to speak on this topic?
Right. Well, thank you, Sabrina, and so lovely to be here again with everyone. Yes, well, I'm Tessa van Keken, and I'm from the Netherlands, and that's where I live right now, but I've lived in Ireland for 15 years, so I'm always so a little bit from Ireland, I always still feel in my heart. And right, what do I do? Well, I do many things, but especially for today related, I am a coach, especially around inner leadership, which I do think is very much often related to female or also feminine leadership. And I also do a lot around healing with people, but I also am actually the chair of and on the board of a foundation called Ready for Female Leadership. So, which I think is quite relevant for this topic, of course. So I'm delighted to talk about this more. I think, yeah, that's definitely in a nutshell why I think what's really close to my heart around this subject is that I think it's so important, all the things why you mentioned it, but also that it only works if we do it as a whole society with all genders, that it's really coming from everyone together.
Geeta, you're up. You're muted.
Sorry. Thanks, Sabrina. Hi, everyone. My name is Geeta Dubey, and I am a mindset strategist. I'm a former scientist and now have become a mentor coach, a mindset strategist, a speaker, and an author. And I also specialize in working with high achieving women to move them from their fixed mindset to a strategic, abundant mindset with the proven proprietary systems which I use, which will lead them into a higher attraction of good clients and ideal clients or high ROIs. And I also have different certifications in mindset, emotional intelligence, as it is one of the hottest topics around, and in NLP. And along with all this, like Sabrina, I also go to different speaking engagements and where I enjoy talking about women and their leadership aspects in achieving whatever they want to. And I live in Georgia. And why this subject is so important to me, women in leaderships, I think they're intertwined. And when I say that, because not many people are able to achieve or become a leader in their subject or expert, but if a woman, especially in the like businesses like us who are coaches, who are consultants or entrepreneur, if they don't have the leadership qualities, they might not be able to move forward in their life or anything they want to achieve. So this is a very subject close to me, and I've been talking about it for a very long time, that women should definitely learn the qualities or they develop the skills. So leadership can be developed, yes, and that's true. So we all can work on it and we can definitely make it happen. And this is here who I am today. So women in leadership, definitely I'm in for it. Thank you so much.
I love it. Thank you so much, Geeta. Karen, or Elena, sorry. Elena.
Hi there. My name is Ilana Rantea, and I am a speaker, trainer, and writer, and people enhancer, as well as co-founder of Empowered Women Now and founder of Phoenix on the Rise. Currently, I'm living in France, but this is country number 13 for me, so I am from kind of everywhere. Along with my business partner, we create and deliver unique and transformational courses designed to empower women at the workplace. And I also have my own women's empowerment coaching practice, which is the Phoenix on the Rise company. And the reason I wanted to actually be part of this panel is because women's empowerment and leadership is very close to my heart. We discuss it in our program, and I'm noticing that a lot of the clients we have now, this is a huge thing on their agenda, is to have more women leaders in the organization. And actually, I think it's a worldwide trend, at least in the West. So we need to help women get to this place, because sometimes there's some inner work that needs to be done. There's things that need to happen internally first before you can lead externally. So this is what I'm very passionate about. So thank you.
Karen, you're up.
Hi, I'm Karen Cooper. I am from Staten Island, New York. I am a wellness consultant with Isogenic, so I help you uplevel your health, mind, and finances. Why this subject? I have a lot of thoughts about it, but to just kind of sum it up, a few things. I was a working mom. I dropped my daughter off at daycare at 10 weeks old after 9/11. She's 21 now, but it was very much looked down upon. Like, how do you do it all? Like, how does a woman work and do, and it drives me insane. It drives me out of my mind, because I honestly think that women, even in 2022, are looked down upon. It's like, wait, you can't do this. We're bitchy. We're considered differently than men are. So I'm really passionate about showing others that stepping into your power, being who you are, because you can learn the skills, you can do everything like that. And I understand about, you know, really, healing and all of those things. But the fact of the matter is, we also need to be who we are at the core and be real and not change for anybody. And I think a lot of times women have to be a certain way in order to be a leader. And I'm here to buck the trend and say, you know what, you're allowed to be you. You're allowed to do the healing. You're allowed to do whatever needs to you. You're not bitchy. You're not bossy. And we can collaborate, work together, and rule the world.
I love it.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lauren Lefkowitz. I'm an executive leadership coach, and I believe that fine is a trap. And fine is the word we use to self-soothe and settle for things that we don't deserve and don't really want. And so I work with mostly women, but all genders, and help executives and emerging leaders figure out what their power is and understand that imposter syndrome is just that. It's just a syndrome that we have to overcome. And if we are able to shift our energy and come into our power, that we can do anything and have whatever we want. I'm from Bethesda, Maryland, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. And why this subject? I mean, this is like where my heart is. I also run a podcast with a partner called I Could Talk to You All Day, where we debunk leadership assumptions and have some real talk about what it is like to actually be a leader and also be human at the same time. And so my feeling is that as a woman, you get to be a leader. You don't have to be a leader, but you get to be a leader, and you get to do it in the way that feels good for you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Catherine Polsnelli. I am currently out of the state of Tennessee. And what I do is I do a lot of things. I am a business organizing powerhouse and a personal development strategist. So I consult with both male and female in transforming their businesses and taking them into a different realm of their business, more from a mindset perspective and an organization perspective. And as far as this subject, for me, this is something I feel that needs to be talked about on both sides. I come from a background of a heavily male influenced arena. And so it's very interesting to see how when you try to be a leader in a male dominated world, you tend to take on that male dominated personality. And so I come from a perspective and hope to get to explain with you guys today on what it looks like to work together and getting us out of our minds, because I've talked with a lot of men that actually don't see it the way we think they did and the way we thought we needed to lead. You're muted, Sabrina.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, ladies. I so appreciate each and every one of you being here this morning. For those of you already jumping on live, you are awesome. Thank you so much for being here, for hanging out with us. If you could share the video that you are watching so that we can reach more people on the subject of leadership, we would so appreciate it. We can all use perspective in this area, so I encourage you to sit tight, take out some notes and a pen, pour yourself some tea, and get interactive with us. This is an interactive forum, so feel free to comment, ask questions, engage. We do pull your questions and comments on screen, and we will interact with you. These ladies are more than happy to give some advice, some input based on their own journey that they have been through. I would love to get this party started by handing the floor over to Miss Tessa. You're up, girl.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, so I already there's so many little nudges of wisdom coming up. So just before asking the question, one thing that really came up for also the foundation I'm a part of, the Ready for Female Leadership, was that this issue of that sometimes it seemed to become men versus women, right? This female or feminine leadership as opposed to male leadership, and or women who feel that they have to become more masculine to be a leader. But also that in my experience from a lot of people I worked with, that I found that the most difficulty they experienced to step into leadership role, the most opposition didn't actually come from men, but from other women, that was even harder. So my question really is for the people here as well, either what's your experience, but also what do you think that we as women, whether we're already in a leadership position or as women who are not, how can we support female leadership? And as I said, not as in opposition to male, but how can we make sure that we contribute that as a whole of society, with men, women, whatever gender people otherwise identify with, that female leadership becomes more possible and more accepted? Elena.
Thanks, Tessa. One of the things that we discuss in our course, so the first course we do with women in the workplace is on confidence. And we've noticed that one of the things that holds women back a lot of the time is that they've been socialized to be competing with each other. And so it becomes this whole thing about, if I'm up here, I need to hold you down there. Whereas we need to turn this around and realize that we are stronger when we're together. And we also have a lot more power and authority and gravitas when we support each other, either in an organization or just in the world. I mean, this is how so many big things have happened for women, such as the suffrage movement. If some of those women had not stepped in together and protested, and they had been jailed and beaten because they wanted this for all women everywhere, none of this would have happened. So it's this whole thing about switching from competing with each other to realizing something very simple. For example, there's so many beautiful different flowers in the world, and they don't compete with each other. They just bloom, right? So if we could see ourselves that way and also encourage our younger counterparts, when we're able to mentor them and lead them and show them the way, this is what can open up. And really, true leaders mentor others so that they can become greater than they already are. That is the mark of true leadership, that you don't hold anyone down, but you help them and assist them to achieve greater heights.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's great. And I think it's that right, that we have to do it together. And
Yes.
I think one of the things is like that starts as women together, because I think it's definitely what you said, that sometimes people trying to step up in leadership, women stepping up in leadership, feel that it's actually other women who are sometimes holding them down even more than men, maybe. But also
Yes.
what I found in our own organization, what was really helpful, there's a lot of men who want this too. And to, rather than again go in opposition, to really work together as well, that it really becomes a ripple effect with everyone who is standing for this, to all work together, so that at least everyone who supports this can create a flow to get this moving. I think Catherine, you had your hand up as well, I think, to go next.
I did, which Elena kind of touched base on, but I was going to say as well, I almost feel like, and this comes from my own perspective, is when we come into the workforce as well, we almost have like a false ego. We already have this sense that we need to prove ourselves, or this sense that we need to be ahead of other people, instead of realizing that a lot of times it's our own ego, it's our own fears that are getting in the way of how we can move forward. So I know that for me, even going into a woman dominant workforce, it was an immediate issue, not because of them, but immediately because of me. That I felt like I needed to push more, I needed to do more, I needed to prove myself. What I have found really interesting is, especially living with 5 guys, and being in a male dominant industry, is a lot of times, unless you have people that have higher egos, right? That's not there for them. They're really more about themselves and what they can do, and then they move on, right? And I feel like we as women tend to be very self-critical, and that is the biggest thing that holds us back in leadership. Is not because of others, but it literally is because of the way that we perceive that we need to be, and then we personify that across the board. And that's the reason why I think that we butt heads so much with one another when we are in those positions.
Yeah, I love that. That is so true. And I think that is also why, like, a lot of work that I do with people is around inner leadership, because I believe that we talk about leadership. And of course, this can be like leading a company, can be like the leaders as that you see. But in the end, everyone is leading their life in one way or another, and a leader in their life. That can also be, you can also be a leader as a single mom, stay-at-home mom. You're still leading something. So I think it's also important to see that when you start with that stepping, as you said, that you stop being this critical to yourself, and also critical especially to other women, to step into that leadership role. That doesn't mean you have to in the end become a leader, like leading a company. It can be just stepping into that leadership in your life. Karen.
To kind of piggyback on what Kat was saying, as Kat was talking, I actually wrote down the word judgment and comparison. So I think a lot of time, I agree. I think it's a lot of times we are self-critical of ourselves, but I also think in the world and society, there's a lot of judgment and comparison against one another. So you have that even women, with other women and men with women and all these things. She does this, she does that, and they start comparing and they do all the things, and that starts playing the head games and everything like that. And that's when the pitting starts, because it's like, well, I don't like that, or she does it better, or whatever it may be, as opposed to looking at the empowered version of that. So rather than judgment and comparison, it's like, wait, she has a strength that maybe I don't have. How can we then work together to collaborate and blow stuff up, or something to that effect, as opposed to looking at the negative side of someone, looking at it from a place of, they have something that I don't necessarily have. That's really cool. That could help me in this space. And so therefore it's collective. And then we can all lead if we all support each other, all lift each other, we can all become leaders in different capacities. And especially if you're collaborating and working together, then just imagine, you're talking about, Alana, you're talking about the suffrage movement. Imagine what could happen if we just stopped looking at the negative and started looking at the positive of someone, and imagine the amazingness that could happen from doing that.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, and I think it's also, for me, what comes up when you say that, Karen, is also that idea of, like, we're talking about female leadership, but also there's also still also feminine leadership, which is not just women. Like, that what you're talking about, this collaboration and this different way of leading, right? That, as we said, there's such a masculine world, but there's a lot of men as well who are very open to the idea that leadership also becomes more around collaboration and more about, leading beside someone, or, helping someone forward, rather than just being a leader above and dragging people up, if you like, which is maybe more masculine energy. But so I love that idea as well, that we talk about, yes, we as women need to be stepping up more to leadership, but also that there's an element of making sure that leadership becomes more balanced between masculine and feminine, regardless of whether the leader is a man or a woman. Is there time for anyone else to respond to this, Sabrina, or are we going? Yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Geeta.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about leadership and women, I think the first place as a woman where we can start from is just being a woman. Believe me when I say that the feminine energy itself can attract so many things and in abundance that you have never ever imagined. Just to give you a little, if you have time, a little short story. I was in one of the big networking group, and they were all women, and I was talking over there. And in my mind, I wanted to work with women, and I was just being so intuitive that I'm going to go and speak to her. And it was such an amazing experience for me when I saw that she also wanted to speak to me. And by the end of the conference, and we were talking to each other, and I just felt like, so I think as a woman, you are already in a very, I think, a stronger position if you become a woman and you think not from your heart as well. So I think like feminine energy, yes, and then action taken after that is always profound. So if you just realize who you truly are, then it's more authentic to move from there. And like everybody was talking about, and not the socially, influenced all the little belief systems, what we really, don't want that. So just to starters, you just need to be just a woman, just relax, enjoy, and see where you are at and what you're trying to attract in your life. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I think, again, it goes for everyone, right? Like, because as women as well, some women have maybe more softer energy and other women are more fiery, and the same with men. So if we all, men and women, more learn to actually tune into, like, our more authentic self and then express that, then again, I say, like, goosebumps of what that could do for leadership all over the world again, right? Yes, and especially for women, as they tend to pretend maybe a little bit more because they think they need to be a certain way to have permission even to be a leader. Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you so much, Tessa. I so appreciate it. And I love Geeta's advice. Let's just all relax. Speaking of Geeta, she is up next.
All right. So I just have a simple question for everybody. What do you think is the most important quality being a woman into a leadership? Sure. Go ahead, Lauren.
I would start with authenticity. I think as women, we are taught as children to like be good and nice and quiet and subversive, and we submissive, and we grow into these roles, and then we are afraid to come in as ourselves, and so we try to be like work Lauren and home Lauren and friend Lauren and hobbies Lauren, right? And we try to sort of separate ourselves. And the thing is, we get caught being ourselves anyway, right? When we're not paying close attention to it, when we're not really trying to be the good version of ourselves for the role that we're in, we end up just being ourselves. And when we are not ourselves, and when we are working so hard to put on a show and do the right thing the right way, our energy comes through in that, and we lose some power, and we lose our ability to just lead the way that we're meant to lead. So I think if we're willing to be our whole selves and to come into our energy and our power, that leadership becomes so much easier, because we're not paying attention to which version of myself am I in this situation.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that was very powerful what you said, that when you become wholesome, and it's very important, because once you realize that you're into your, let's say, more authentic self, automatically the masculine side would follow no matter what, because you are operating from a different side of yourself and not trying to impose yourself into different brackets. Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, sure. Please go ahead, Elena.
One of the things that we do during this confidence course is we talk about the male and the female ways of leadership and traditional ways. So, there's certain adjectives that have been associated with the male, and there's certain adjectives associated with the female. And the male qualities certainly have been more valued in the past, as opposed to the feminine qualities. So to debunk all of that nonsense, I go through a list of women throughout history who have been incredible leaders. They have actually been more like fallen into leadership situations as opposed to seeking them. And they have changed the whole world. And I'll just give you one. I have more we can discuss later. But Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which of course you all know, who was the Supreme Court judge who changed the entire justice system in America in the 1970s because it was so lopsided towards men. I mean, she just took this on because she saw that it needed to be done. And she just did it. And she didn't even think about anything else. She was, against convention. She was quiet. She was soft-spoken, which are very feminine qualities, but she had this incredible intellect. And she was fearless. She was absolutely fearless. If you haven't seen the movie RBG, I really urge you to do that. It's deeply inspiring. So I would say that the biggest quality is this courage and not to be afraid to go against society and what it's teaching us, because there's been so much brainwashing we've had since infancy about how we're supposed to be. And leadership is not how we're supposed to be. Anyway, I have more stories to share. If anybody wants to hear them later, there's some amazing women out there. And whenever I present this, everybody gets very excited and inspired. So, yeah.
Can you repeat the name of the movie? Just
RBG.
RBG.
Yeah.
Because I heard RBG, so that's perfect. Thank you for that.
RBG, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think yeah, sure. Please go ahead, Ken. Yeah, Catherine.
I was actually gonna piggyback. And I say that I agree with what everybody's saying, but I thought it would be impactful to kind of give you guys an interesting twist. Authenticity is a huge one for sure. And I say that from personal experience. And the reason I say this, because even though I was brought up in a traditional household, I had both my parents, I was very close to my father. I was also the oldest of 3 girls. So what's interesting is I ended up actually taking on the role of more of the masculine energy. And I had an issue throughout my entire childhood and a lot of my adult life with having any type of conversation or ways to connect with women. To me, they were always a threat, because anytime I had ever been around them, they were always looking to get at me because I was that pusher, I was that doer, because I was in such a masculine world, I guess. And in my head, that's how things ran. So when I worked with men, it was no problem, right? I didn't have those issues. But once I really started working on who I was and trying to actually find the balance, that's when things kind of started opening up to women that were open to having those conversations and were open to accepting me as I was, instead of such critical judgment, which I know we talked about earlier. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a story to kind of, anyone out there that's needing to connect with the other side. I understand personally how that is as well, from being in that dominant position and feeling like you always have to be in that, especially raising boys as a single mom, and how you have to find that balance of who you are and where you can connect in the feminine, as well as in that masculine as well.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Ken. Yeah, Tessa, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm also going to go piggyback then on that, because I think for me that was exactly that idea what we talked about earlier about being authentic, being your true self. And I think, again, like, wherever on the scale you are, because not all women have the same, level of feminine or masculine energy either. But especially this, I think what we as women can bring is even more so that quality of collaboration as well. And I think, again, men have it too, but I think they can often, they can really take the lead, maybe more strongly. And that where we as women, if you step out of what's more natural, that's, I think, where it comes that maybe as women, especially among each other, we can end up in competing, of actually being bitchy. And that's actually because we're out of alignment with our own true self. Whereas if you then fall back into that, so again, if it comes from first, again, that inner leadership where you first of all learn to go back inside to really feel, hey, where am I? Who am I? And, as I said, that also looking at other women that you notice, okay, certain things I can learn from this, but I can also see where, maybe a more feminine woman versus someone who's a little bit more fiery, that you find where do I stand? And then once you have that then you can see, you step into that place again, more your true nature of being more collaborative, more supportive, where it comes from your strengths that you can then add and collaborate with the strength of others, and also men then. Whereas if we're not in that place, if we start to try to be, I should be more like this, either towards looking at men and think I need to lead like a man, or towards some women maybe who are, in their way feminine or whatever, where that might not be completely your way either, and then you start competing. So I think it's coming back to that, first of all, leading from within, finding your own inner leader, if you like, and then stepping out and actually lead from that space.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tessa. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, Elena, please go ahead.
Just one more comment about the authenticity. I think authenticity is so crucial to every area of our lives. And certainly if we're going to be up there leading others, people sense duplicity, or they sense someone who doesn't know who they are, who's pretending or imitating or trying to be someone else. So unless you really are that strong, authentic self and it comes across that way, it's not inspirational, it's not motivating, and it doesn't lead anywhere. It just actually makes you look foolish. Mm-hmm. So I totally agree that authenticity is the number one thing. And these ladies I was talking about that have made such changes in the world, they were all deeply authentic and didn't pay attention to the naysayers and to other forces that were trying to pull them back, but they just went ahead with what they saw needed to be done, and they took action, massive action, and sometimes they were just on their own, and it's just so inspiring to see that.
And I think to add a little bit of that, I was talking to one of the very successful high achieving or high performance coach from Canada, and to my surprise, when he told me about in the corporate world or any world, when you meet the leaders, the head of the departments, they do have a little bit of feminism in them, because they do operate from a little bit of intuitiveness as well. So they have a great mindset to balance it out both. Like, this is what we are talking about. And then they take massive actions, which is always a masculine energy, right? So here we are talking about just start from where you are at and just being the acceptance of you don't have to be a feminist for that. You just need to be in tune with yourself. That's it. And then automatically, it trickles down to the other steps which are going to follow it. So I think that's where what authenticity comes from. And if once you're in that place of being authentic, speaking from your heart and just letting it out, and so like Elena was saying, and everybody was saying, Tessa and Lauren, that is the place you want to be, and it's a powerhouse for being leaders. Anybody else would like to add anything? Yeah, sure, Elena, please.
Sorry, just one more thing. Empathy. Empathy is really huge now, and it's actually seen that it's a very good quality for leaders to have. They're not leading from the tower anymore and giving directions. They're like actually really caring for their staff and showing that they matter. And this is the only way to actually have engaged workforce, is if they know that you care and that there is empathy there. So this is where women have an advantage, because we naturally are more heart connected and we are naturally more empathetic. So I think that's a really huge one these days too.
Great. Yeah. Tess, how you want to add? Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought maybe to say one thing to anyone listening who might find like thinking to themselves, but I don't know who I am, or I am actually in a space where I feel I'm pretending, that's okay. That, like, this idea of being authentic, that yes, that is what you need in the end to maybe fully embody your own inner leader and being an outside leader and externally lead, but also that it is a journey and it is a process. So if you're not there right now, that is really okay. And that, it doesn't mean that you can't lead in any way or not be a leader until you're like fully there. It's a lifelong journey. And wherever you're at, even just that awareness that now and that you kind of can go, oh, wait, I can now look at that and I can practice this. And if only 1% of the time for the next couple of days or even years you manage to do it, it's okay. You're getting there. It's like the fact that you're working on it means you can step into that leadership, both for yourself and outside. You don't have to 100% be there to step into that space. And I think that links to empathy. So also if you see other people who are, doing their best and stepping into that, if they're failing half the time, show empathy that, like, they are also doing the best they can at this moment in time.
Yeah. Thank you, Tessa. Yes, Karen?
To piggyback on, what a great point, Tessa, first of all, but to piggyback on what Tessa said, like, you have the power within you. Like, it's a Wizard of Oz, right? At the end of the Wizard of Oz, by the way, spoiler alert. She says, she says, Dorothy, you had the power within you all along. It was always there within you. So Tessa, to your point, people don't think about, I don't know what I am and everything like that. You actually do have, I want you guys to know that you actually do have the power within you all along. Like, we don't think we do. Maybe it's squashed down, maybe whatever reason you don't think you do, but you just understand that it is within you, and whatever steps you need to take to have that blossom, and just one foot in front of the other. You just put one foot in front of the other and just make a decision and then take the action on the decision. But know that you're not looking for it somewhere out there. It's there within you. I wanted to say that.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Yes, Sabrina?
I kind of have a question for those listening. I think it's important for us to recognize where we are here on this panel as far as our mental and emotional level versus, other people that are maybe just stepping into personal development or just hearing about this word authenticity. So I'd like to just spend a couple of moments and maybe get some feedback on, number one, what does authenticity even mean? And then number two, kind of piggybacking off of what Tessa and Karen were saying, how do you do that? Like, okay, so cool. If you're not being authentic yet, how do you get from like where you are to this magical authenticity? How do we even do that? Lauren?
First, I think, like Tessa said, like, small steps, right? It doesn't happen right away. For me, the first thing is notice it. A lot of us go through our whole lives playing a role tamping down our greatness and waiting to be allowed to be our whole selves. And so we feel it, right? If we allow ourselves to pay attention to it, we feel it. We feel that we're in a room, somebody asks a question, we really want to go, I know. And we stop ourselves from raising our hand, or we think, I'll raise my hand third, and they never get to the third person, right? And so it's this acting, this deciding deliberately not to do you the way that you want to do you. Stepping into your authenticity fully, I think, is challenging because there are some things you'll notice, and there are some things you've been so trained so hard not to do or to do that you don't notice them, and you need somebody else to help you notice them. And so a manager who is supportive of you, a mentor, a coach, books. There are a lot of ways, there are a lot of coaches out there, like even if you're not hiring a coach, who are on social media or who have YouTube videos, including you, Sabrina. You talk about this stuff a lot, but get help. And I think a lot of times strong women think that they can't get help, that they have to figure everything out on their own. And the important thing is to recognize that you get to be whoever you want to be, and you don't have to figure it out alone. So there's a little bit of everything there.
Kat?
I think for me, personally, authenticity is being comfortable in your own skin, both when you are alone with yourself and when you are around other people. That is a huge one, because a lot of times I think that people tend to pretend who they are even when they are alone, which is why especially we as women tend to stay busy all the time, being overly involved in things that don't necessarily need us, is because we don't want to be alone with ourselves to deal with those thoughts, those questions, or what could possibly be you, because then you judge yourself. For me also, as far as working on that, small steps obviously, but I would say that boundaries and looking to see who you are around and how they are lifting you up, but also accepting of you, because that's also a really hard one. So if you are around people that have expectations of you that you know don't agree with you, it's going to be very hard for you to be authentically you, because you always have these other people that you feel like you need to be a person so that they will continue to accept you. That was a really hard one for me. And for a lot of people, yes, you will go through a spot of being alone, but you have to be okay with that and open yourself up to that piece of authenticity and being okay with yourself. And that is when the correct people will flow into your life.
Beautiful. Tessa?
Yeah, I think one of the things that really helped me was learning as well that being your true self, being authentic, like that it's not static. You know, we all grow, but also we change. Like, you know, maybe, and it sounds maybe like a really silly example, but maybe as a kid you liked horror movies and later you didn't, right? So then if you always look at it as like, oh, I need to find my true self, and then when I found it, then that's it. Then the problem is that then growth stops, right? Because you might actually change. So it's also good to really always connect again. And that's kind of piggybacking on what Catherine said, like this thing of like, do I feel good in my own skin right now? And that might be different now than tomorrow. I often say, like, compare it to if you think your own true self is static, but if you go out in super hot weather, your body, your mind reacts different than when you go out into the cold and there's snow. So that kind of reaction. So you are different also with different people. Like, you're never going to be 100% the same with your 5-year-old child as with your dad or with your partner or with your boss. I mean, that would be weird. So it's not as if you're one static kind of way of being and go like, you know, oh, this is me and all the other things are roles, because it's also you adapt to, like the same way you adapt to cold or hot weather, or like, you know, so I think if you compare to that, and if you start listening more to your body and to your soul, if you like, or your intuition, whatever way it feels for you, then you start learning that you see, oh yeah, it's not that because I'm different here than there, that means I'm not being my true self in one or two of the situations. It means that you're still you in connection or in interaction with your surrounding. So there has to be also some flexibility in that. And when you start learning that, that really helps. And I think also what helps is really to realize that, even being your true self, that for instance, in certain circumstances, it is okay to not be 100% yourself. Like I always use the example of like, if it's my dad's birthday and I know to him it really matters that I dress up, I don't know, in kind of nice clothes. I can do that for him without losing my true self, but I need to listen to myself. Am I really doing this because I think, hey, he likes it, it's important to him, or am I doing it because I'm afraid that if I don't, he will reject me? And that comes back to what Catherine said, like you need to learn to be honest with yourself. And then it's okay to sometimes do something that might say, like I could say, well, that's not me. I like these kind of clothes. So tough luck. I'm going to be my true self. Don't care what he thinks. But then really, then the empathy is gone that we talked about earlier. So I do think it's important to see, but you have to look back, like, why am I doing this? And if there's a circumstance where, for instance, if days where I don't feel well and I had like a rough couple of months and like a lot of trauma got triggered. And I had to also be kind to myself, that it was okay to be a little bit less true to myself in certain circumstances because I didn't feel strong enough to deal with if there would have been a reaction from someone to that. So I think it comes back again to also that empathy first also to yourself, to say, hey, it's about that you're aware of these things and that you start seeing what you need. And then also, it's been said before, you don't have to do this alone. That also then where you feel, okay, I want to do these things, but I don't know how, or I feel not strong enough, or I can't, accept help, right? Let others also embrace you and help you with that. Because if you open yourself up to that, as we said, especially also as women, but men too, once we are in that space of our true self, then actually our natural way is to hold each other, hold space for each other, help each other. So I think allow yourself to be part of that too. And also, so let you also sometimes be the one that is being helped.
I love it. Thank you so much, Tessa. Such great input on that question. I appreciate that. I know Elena had her hand up. Geeta, I'm going to thank you for holding the floor. I apologize for cutting you off there. As we go along, you can kind of sprinkle in what you're thinking there, but I'm going to go ahead and give Elena the chance to answer and then also just take over the mic.
Thanks, Sabrina. I actually wrote a blog post on authenticity about 3 years ago, and I talked about the story of George Michael, who was actually very gay, and he pretended he wasn't because he was deeply afraid of rejection from his family. And he actually ended up dying alone due to an overdose because he could not be who he really was. And I talk about the destructive force of being inauthentic to how you live your life. And I talk about it from experience because I have had to stand up to my own parents who didn't accept me for who I was and wanted me to change dramatically to be acceptable to them. And I didn't do that. And that resulted in a 4-year estrangement with my parents, which was extremely difficult to deal with. And yes, I needed lots of help and therapy with that one. But in the final analysis, it was worth it to me because I need to be who I am. And I have to also trust my inner self and my inner guidance to know how I need to live. And it's not to please other people. Something minor like Tessa said about wearing nice clothes for your father's birthday, that's just a kind gesture. But when you live your whole life for someone else, like George Michael did, just because of an image, that is extremely, extremely damaging to the self. And it can literally end your life earlier than it should be. So thanks for that, for letting me express that. So I have a question, ladies. How would our world benefit from more female leaders at every level? So I'm not just talking business or politics. I'm talking like across the board. How would our world benefit if we had more female leaders working with male leaders, again, collaboratively, how would that change our world? What are your thoughts on that? Yes, Kat.
So as a mom of two boys, I'm trying to actually raise them to be more aware of women and how they operate. And I believe that, oh goodness, in a more collaborative space, there would have to be first more understanding of both sides, of both genders. Um, and within that, I think that would lead to a lot more less tension and criticism from both sides. Because I do feel like males and females are from different sides of the world, right? I really truly do. And a lot of times what we try to explain and project makes absolutely no sense to them. It's the same thing across the board, right? And so I do believe that having women in those different positions and working alongside men in a more collaborative space opens up both sides to let go of that ego, to let go of that criticism that I do believe a lot of men secretly deal with. They just don't talk about it like women are starting to, because they still have a stigmatism that they are supposed to be strong. And that is something that I've worked really hard with my children, is being able to come out and have those conversations and explain how you are feeling, and when you do not agree with something, in a way that both sides can understand. And to me, that would just be the most empowering thing, is to see that happen from both sides, to allow both the ability to grow and get rid of societal stigmatisms.
Thanks, Kat. It's very interesting because I mentioned we do these courses for women. I've had at least 4 men say to me, we need courses like this for men. And yes, definitely not taught by me, but because men have their own issues that I can't address as a woman because I haven't been one. But definitely, I think it would be reaching a greater understanding between the two genders so that we can work together for a world that's more collaborative and more community oriented, as opposed to just like, just me. Yeah. Sorry, Karen.
To piggyback on what Kat was saying, and as Kat was talking about book trend and society and help, those are the words I wrote down, because I have one son, but I also have a daughter. And I also think going back to earlier about asking for help, and a strong woman totally was that person. I'm like, I can do it myself. I can do it myself. I don't need any help. I don't want any help, that kind of a thing. And it took me quite some time to receive the help and know that it was okay to ask for help and that it wasn't a bad thing. So I just wanted to say that partly for everybody listening as well, but also to the point of, society, it was like, well, the man goes to work, the men should earn more, and the woman should be this, and, the roles that we were supposed to play. So I think that conversation has to take place. I was talking with my daughter. She's graduating college in May. She has a boyfriend. They're going to get married. The whole thing they're going to do. And it was a conversation about, they each to each other had a conversation about earning money, what they're going to do with children, all the things, like planning their life, not even so much planning, but having the conversation about their lives. And I was like, oh my God, yay. And you're totally doing the opposite of us. Yay. But like doing that, I think that conversation has to take place from a young age. They're 21 and 22. So it's, what are we doing? It's not listening, oh, well, you should be making more, and resenting, because I did that. Like I was totally on that. He should be making more money than I was. And I was always the breadwinner in my marriage. And I resented it, if I'm being totally honest. And why? Because society told me to. So I think
prior conditioning.
Exactly, prior conditioning. So it came time to realize, it doesn't really matter. So I think that's bucking the trend, in the sense of, you were talking about earlier with society and the women, and not screwing the naysayers and things like that. I think that's really important, because there's so many things coming at us, so much information, and it's like, you know what? No, what's right for us? It doesn't matter who's saying what, or maybe we can take bits and pieces of that information and have the conversation together, and asking for help, because women don't ask for help. I worked in corporate, now I work in network marketing, and it was a bad thing to ask for help. It was even in
you're weak, right? You're weak.
And maybe you don't understand, and that kind of a thing. But I also think, back to the empathy part, it's about also, I see your point. So Kat, what you were saying, it's understanding, maybe you don't agree with what the person is saying, but you can see their point. you can see what they're saying and understand what they're saying. You don't have to agree with it, but I think it just also becomes that, because too much time, like I said earlier, it's the judgment, the comparison, all of that. So if we just see what other people are saying, then maybe we have more of the empathy, and then it's like, oh wait, you know what, maybe what she's saying is right, or maybe it makes us think in a different manner to say, you know what, maybe I'm doing it, maybe I should switch it to this way or that way, or whatever it may be, and therefore it makes it a better environment for everybody.
Thank you. Geeta.
Yeah, first of all, I'll just a little bit talk about authenticity, because I wanted to say something. So how you can become more authentic is, there's a little exercise which viewers can do, and I wanted to share it here. Just write down your name. I am, like for me, it's Geeta Dubey, and see what emotions invoke in you. That is one of the finest exercises you could do. And I tell you, that is very powerful. Get comfortable with your own self is to beginning. You are able to adapt your name very well. So leaders know how to do. When they talk about their names, they have that spark in their eyes. That, for instance, if I say I'm Geeta Dubey, so there is a powerhouse already there. So where to begin? That's the simple place to begin. All right. Okay. Thank you. And so now moving on to what Elena was saying. Actually, what I feel, since it's a very male-dominated society right now, I think the empathy and what everybody was talking about, especially for the younger boys, they need to understand that. I feel that boys, because I also have two boys like Kat, and I know how it works when you have a house full of boys around you. So you really have to make them an embodiment, like they should be more practicing empathy than the females. Because whenever you see a man into his true power, he would have both sides of it, in balance. Believe me when I say that, like a man who's authentically presenting themselves as a leaders or as a bread earner, or anything you want to call it. So they have the balancing of the both sides, either feminine or the masculine. So I think more so with the women right now, because I think women are changing themselves. I don't know why. If I can give you a small example, like I was in a group of ladies, and they were calling each other bro. And I was thinking, why would you do that? I'm sorry to say that. It could be a new slang. I don't know. I'm still getting used to it. But they were calling each other bro. Hi, bro. How are you doing, bro? And I said, you're comfortable with that? They said, yeah, it's cool. It's a new thing, right? So that's how we present ourselves. It's fine. I mean, I'm not against it. Probably they like it, and I'm not saying anything about it. But what I'm trying to say here is, since it's so much of domination of that masculine energy or that male energy, and where we need to start literally from what I believe in as a leader, that men are taught at the younger ages about empathy, because women are kind of born with it. They need to develop it, right? They need to make it more skilled, like what is empathy, because they're very intuitive. They cry in the public. We show our emotions very easily, some of us. But men have a hard time doing that, emotions playing, because they aren't supposed to do it. The program, they have been programmed. You cannot cry, you cannot show your emotions publicly. And that's what we don't want. Because if men start to do that and become more, little bit shift their mindset towards, like they can, express authentically in the form of emotions. It's simple. When they see something on the news, they don't say, oh, that's okay if something is going on bad. But the women would respond to it, oh, I'm so sorry to see that, right? Most of the women are like that, because we are inbuilt. So I think the shift should start literally, yes, with the women, I agree, but more so on the men's side, like little bit of courses, like what Elena was saying, that men want the courses as well, the empathy courses, so they can literally express themselves more authentically and more like emotionally connected people. And leaders are emotionally connected people. They know how to work with their emotions well.
Do you think that if more women like RBG stepped up to the plate, they could actually change how our world functions, like on a really big level? Because the changes she made were phenomenal, and she was one person. So if more women stepped up to the plate and did those kinds of things, and they have throughout history, do you think we could actually change this imbalance that we have going on? It's so male oriented that we could shift it to have it more balanced, the yin and the yang working together collaboratively.
Yeah. So I think I would answer that, like women need to work with women more. And men need to work with the empathy and all those tools we talked about under emotional intelligence more. And that could shift the balance little bit, because they have been literally programmed not to talk about their emotions so well. And women, on the other hand, as women, we don't like to uplift each other so much. So women needs to network with the women more. That's a powerhouse there itself. We can
And men need
uplift,
to connect to their hearts
and they connect it to their hearts.
because
So I
they've
think
been
that
so
could be,
disconnected. Yeah.
yeah.
Karen?
Sorry, I've been like, anyway, I'm not sorry about it. But here's the thing. I love you, Geeta, but we should all be feeling our feelings, period, end of sentence. Not just men, not all of us are been taught, don't don't cry, don't this, don't that, blah, blah. We should all, like Kat was saying earlier about being busy and all of those things, we do that because we don't want to feel the feelings. And guess what? If we actually feel the feelings, as miserable, as painful as it could be, because I've been doing that myself, lately, I speak from really large experience at the moment. It's painful, it's miserable, it's awful. I'm going to be honest with you. However, what's at the end of that? What is at the end of actually feeling your feelings and starting to heal is building the empathy and all of these things so that you can be the powerhouse and be the leader and work together on all of the things. Men, women, it really doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't matter. Literally in my house last night, there was a question about my daughter taking a bath at 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, dude, I want to go to bed. No, because the bathroom's by my bedroom. I don't understand why it would bother you. Literally, that's what she said to me. And so to that point, it's like, you know what? I feel you. I feel what you're saying, but these are my feelings. And acknowledging said feelings, I think, are really, 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 really important in general speaking, period. It doesn't matter, men, women, child, whatever. And also, it's a matter of acknowledging, you're talking about earlier about authenticity and the feelings. And you know what? We have trauma. We all have traumas within us from whatever reason. And trauma could be somebody said something to you. So realizing that trigger, that would hold you back as well. So feeling the feelings, but also realize, wait, hold on, that bothered me. Why did that bother me? And ask yourself these questions as to what's going on here and moving the needle, if you will, to then explore and understand and grow. Because the thing is, you're always growing, you're always learning. It doesn't ever end. And it's a beautiful thing that happens, because you're going to lose people, you're going to gain people, but it's going, in the end, you become a powerhouse, and therefore everybody around you, like we were talking about earlier, is a powerhouse.
Kat?
I'm also going to take a twist on what you're saying, because I do believe, like you were saying, people like RBG and things like that can really help move things. I think it goes back further, and that is back to parenting. I think that goes back to people, whether you're a single parent or it's both of you in the household, getting rid of gender roles on how you bring your children up and allowing them to be who they are without judging them. And I think that's very hard for a lot of parents, because we were judged so much when we were growing up, and a lot of us still have those issues that we are dealing with, that we pass that on to our children. So if we're looking to ultimately, like you were saying, have a more collaborative space within the realm of the world, it really comes back to parenting. It really comes back to those people that are around our children and how we are teaching and allowing them to be open, because the more that we force them down a rabbit hole or down one spiral, the harder it is for them to get out of that, to create that collaboration, because we have so much healing to go through in our adult years that a lot of us miss those opportunities to be able to help other people.
Thank you. I think you're absolutely right. It does go back to parenting and also to the culture and the religion. All of those different factors have a lot to do with how people grow up as adults and their worldview. Thank you so much, ladies.
So I'm taking it in that direction. Actually, I had actually a lot of thoughts back and forth, but I'm like, you know what? One of the things that drives me out of my ever loving mind is when it's women in general. How do you balance it all? That question literally like grates at my nerves, because to me, it's never asked of men. First of all, it's never asked of men. How do you balance it all? How do you be a CEO and do you have time with your kids and everything like that? And it started when like I said, I had at the time I didn't know another way. So I went back to work when my daughter was 10 weeks old, and it wasn't pleasant. I mean, I had a lot of issues with that myself. But I think society placed those on me as well. So my question or thought, I'd love to have a conversation about the fact of, we're talking about leadership and everything like that, but it's how do you respond to, if you're a parent or even in general, like how do you manage it all? How do you do it all? Like, how do we ever stop a question like that? Or how do we make it so like people understand that you can have your kids, you can be a CEO, you can be anything and still be human and bring up humans and have them do well in society. So I would love to hear thoughts on that. Go ahead, Kat.
So for me, when that question comes up, I like to change it, because that question in itself of how do you handle it all, how do you do it all, in my personal opinion, is more of a negative connotation of feeling sorry for someone. So I do my absolute best, especially if I'm talking with someone or if someone asks me that, is look for a congratulations or a way to change that, so it's not, oh my gosh, how do you do it all? It's congratulations, that's, you have a lot on your plate. Is there any advice that you could give other people that would help them balance things out? I also get frustrated with the word balance as well, and I learned this from a mentor that I worked with that I really, really wanted to bring here when you said that, is something that she brought up to me and taught me. Is she said, I don't have balance, I have an orchestra. She said, if you think of an orchestra, you have certain pieces that play that move down and other pieces that come out to play, and then they collaborate together. And right, your life is the same way. So instead of this balance of, okay, I have to be mom here, and then I've got to run my business, and then I need to do this, if we could learn to be okay with it being an orchestra, where it's sometimes being a mom is the top priority, right? And then sometimes my business is the top priority, and sometimes they have to mesh together. And I'm dealing with my kid who's doing homework in the corner while I'm working at the same time, versus trying to find this balance. Because ultimately, when people hear the word balance, they think of it either doing this or this, right? Whereas anyone in their lives have a lot of things going on at one time. And so we have to be okay with those simultaneously working together and giving precedent to each one as it comes up without necessarily looking for balance.
Okay, Tessa, before you say, I call you, I just have to say I love that. And I literally use balance when I talk about my health and wellness and say you can always have balance. And now I'm not going to do that simply because I understand now the connotation. No, you just totally gave me like a really good idea. Like I understand how that may be perceived now. But to the point of leadership and asking for help and empathy and everything, I heard what Kat said, and I'm like, you know what? I understand that may not be helpful to people. And now I'm going to find a different word to change that. So thank you for that. That was amazing. Tessa, go right ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to, before going back to your question, I actually want to say as well, it's so interesting because, again, for the foundation I'm involved with for Ready for Female Leadership, initially we had also as a phrase, gender balanced leadership. And that was one thing, that's because it's used a lot in diversity and inclusion and in lots of companies and also in other areas. And then we actually changed it to gender inclusive leadership, because that was more again about it needs to be inclusive, because, or like as you say, also again with masculine or feminine qualities in leadership, that in that one you can say sometimes there needs to be a balance, but it's not a balance as in balancing, as making it all equal, as in exactly the same. It's like sometimes we need to go for something and sometimes we need to like really be more soft. So it's again more like an inclusion. And also again with whether it's men or women or female leadership or feminine leadership, that it's more about the inclusion of it all, and to again comes back to the collaboration and together. And I think as well, like then coming to your question around it, like how do you manage it all or balance it all? It comes as well, like, when it becomes all inclusive, and then it comes back to, again, being your true self. Do you want to do all these things? Why are you doing them all? Why, again, that's, I think, again, women especially, they often think, oh, I need to be a leader, so I need to be a CEO, or I need to be this, or I need to be that. Whereas maybe your leadership skill is the teaching of, is the parenting of your children at home without working at all, as in not working at all, but like, not in as in a CEO job. So it's like, I think it's also looking again, like being a leader doesn't mean that the whole world knows who you are and that you're on the forefront of all, I don't know, the times or anything like that. It could also be that no one has ever heard from you, but you have been a great leader in your family, in your life. So I think that's also important to really emphasize again as well, so people listening, that we're not here talking about all becoming leaders of big companies or anything like that. So I think when it becomes like that, you feel, how do I manage it all? How can I manage this all? How can then actually step back and think, am I actually doing the things that are true to me? Is this my way of being a leader? Is this my way? Is this what I need to do? Or is it actually something that actually tells me, the fact that it tells me that I'm feeling I might not be managing everything or I can't handle it all, then maybe there's something I'm doing that's not me. So I think that's also important.
It's such a great point. Such a great point there. Thank you, Tess. Lauren, go ahead.
Thanks. These are such great points. And I love the differing language, inclusion, orchestra. My word is integration, because it all comes together. You're doing it all. You're integrating whatever it is. And I also don't believe in balance. I think there are choices that we make, and we choose how much time and energy we spend on ourselves, on our work, on our children. And sometimes the choices are harder because work requires more time, or your child is homesick, or whatever it is. Usually what ends up suffering is ourselves. We usually come last. And so when I've worked with my clients who have kids or aging parents or disabled siblings that they're taking care of, or some other demand other than themselves and their job, or even if their job is treated like their child, which is a way that I lived for many years, working upwards of 80 to 100 hours a week. We're always making choices. And even if there's no time, there's a little time. I had worked with one client who said, I just want 5 minutes to drink a cup of coffee in the morning. And I said, where are you alone in your house? Like where is a place that nobody comes into? And she said, well, the bathroom. We've set bathroom boundaries. I said, okay. Take your cup of coffee into the bathroom, go behind the shower curtain, close it, and take your 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes for her was so rewarding that she then told her family she was going to take that out to the deck. And 5 minutes became 15, and it became part of her morning routine. And her spouse and her kids figured out how to handle those 15 minutes. So the choices are not easy, and I don't want to make it sound like they're easy. And if you're a single parent and your child is too young to be left alone, then maybe it's the beginning of their nap when they'll be down for 5 minutes before they start complaining. It's about really paying attention to it so that you get integrated into your life, and your whole life isn't about what everybody around you needs from you.
Yes. All the yes to that. And to your point, and Sabrina, I'll let you go in a second, but to your point, like when I first heard of, when I worked out with the people who were doing isogenics, I'm like, how am I going to fit that into my life? Because I was working full time, my kids were in sports and all the things. And how am I going to fit into my life? Turns out I watched a shit ton of TV, excuse my French, but like I watch a lot of TV. And so, but you have to take inventory of what you're doing. And by the way, it's also okay to put yourself first, to take a few minutes for yourself in order to become not overwhelmed and become who you need to be. I don't want to say who you need to be, but it's okay to take time for yourself. Sabrina, go ahead.
I love it. Thank you so much. I do have something to say, but I also want to say thank you, Karen, so much for this awesome discussion. We're going to hand the mic over to Kat, but I do want to notate off of what everybody else said. Coming from the background of being a single mom, I think it's important for women answering that question, like, how do you balance it all, to recognize that there are not only ebbs and flows in our life, but there's also just entire chapters, entire cycles of, hey, right now I am a single mom and unfortunately, most of the, time that I have in my world is being spent on a baby. Now, that doesn't mean that you aren't a manager. It doesn't mean that you're not moving up in a company. It doesn't mean that you don't own your own business. It just means that right now, majority of your time is going towards this baby. And then at some point, right, the baby turns 5, the whole dynamic changes. The child turns 12, the whole dynamic changes. The child turns 15, again, the whole dynamic changes. My son is now going to be 19 years old. And the way that I balanced my life when he was 6 months or 2 years old is totally different than the way that I obviously manage my life now. So I think it's important to recognize that when you're in the chapter that you're in, to look around and be grateful, first of all, that it is your chapter, that you do have a child, or that you do have whatever's going on in your world, taking care of grandparents, which Lauren was talking about. And just realize that the only consistent thing in our world is change. And that whatever you have going through, whatever you're going through right now, highs and lows, is all just temporary. And so sitting in that moment and really recognizing that and being okay with that and being fully present with whatever's going on in that chapter, recognizing that this isn't going to be forever and that there will be another ebb and flow of good or bad. And that at that point, then we will, figure out how to go through that. So I think really one of the things that really got me through this whole single mom thing is just like, hey, this is not forever. Like there's going to be a time when my time does look different than the way it looks right now. And I can tell you, and for those of you that are parents here, like it goes by so fast. Like 19 years went by so freaking fast. I can't even believe that there was even ever a smidge of doubt in my head of like, oh my gosh, how am I going to ever fit this in or this in or this in? Because like now I have so much time on my hands. It's like, I don't even know what to do with it sometimes. So I just dove into what I'm building now. But, be patient and be present, be grateful, and all of those things. Thank you. Karen, or who's up? Catherine, you're up.
I absolutely love that. Because it is very true. And I've learned that being a single mom, my boys are now 18 and 15, and it's very different in what they need from me, and how I teach them, but how I build boundaries at that time. So I love that. Thank you for that. So I have an interesting one. This is a pet peeve of mine, I guess. I have an issue with societal standards and the things that we are all held to. So I would love to have a conversation around what standards, what society standards do you feel like we hold people to that is absolute BS and needs to be addressed to help people as a collective get over that and start thinking differently? I saw Ilana first.
Well, I'm going to address women because that's who I work with. And I can tell you that this whole thing with perfectionism, that women are supposed to be perfect, is huge. It's mass media, it's your family, it's culture, it's everything. Women are supposed to be beautiful and perfect and do everything absolutely perfectly. And they're not supposed to do anything until they know they can do it perfectly. Because God forbid if they fail, right? Because if they fail, it's the end of the world and that's it. I think that is such a huge obstacle, and it's a self-sabotage that so many women have. They're trying to be perfect as opposed to focusing on personal best and personal growth, because perfection is unattainable. And this is what we need to actually teach everybody, that perfection is unattainable, and everybody just has to come to the table bringing their best with their best intentions, working to their talents, and the self-growth part, like we said before, it never stops. So I think all of those concepts together, if we actually started to bring this into the world, things would really start to shift.
Oh, I absolutely love that one. And I personally have dealt with that one very largely in my life. And it's funny, I'll share a quote with you guys, and Karen, I'll let you go. I had a gentleman that was on a podcast with me, and his favorite quote was, imperfect action will always outbeat a perfect inaction every time. I thought that was the coolest quote ever, and that one has stuck with me for a while. So, Karen, I'll let you go.
The whole do as I say, not as I do drives me insane as a parent, as a human, just in general speaking. And I think, we're talking about leadership, and I think, it used to be leadership is I'm here and everybody is here. You know what I'm saying? Like that. And, and I think because actually I don't think because I know because I having done corporate and now network marketing is extremely collaborative, not just within the company, but just in generally speaking. And I think what we need to understand is not do as I say, not as I do, but it's and not just I'm the leader and that's it. It's running with people. It's working together for the greater good. It's building each other up. It's knowing I have these strengths, you have these strengths. Let's work together. Let's pull together, and we can. You know what? Even if there's just one leader at the top, for example, it's we're all working together for the greater good. So I think it's a matter of understanding that demoting the ego and promoting the soul. That's really what it is. One of the things I'll say is I saw Jesse Itzler, who's married to Sarah Blakely, who does Spanx, who created Spanx. Look him up. He's insanely incredible. But he spoke at our convention in August. And what he said was, his father had owned a business, but he also had soul. So the point is like you can make a shit ton of money, but if you don't have soul, what are you really doing with it? It's how you treat people. It's what you talk. It's how you talk with others and that kind of a thing. And he says, if you have a lot of money, but you don't have soul, 1 times 0 is 0. But if you have a lot of money and you have soul, 1 times 1 is 1. And I think that was hugely important. So it's not do as I say, not as I do. It's a matter of, you know what? Demoting the ego, promoting the soul, working together for the greater good. And yeah, I know we're talking about women specifically, but and I said this earlier, like if we work together for the greater good and the ideas that flow, Alana, you asked a question earlier about what could happen. I mean, could you imagine what would happen? Like, it's not even about ruling the world. It's showing it's breaking society rules. It's breaking all of these boundaries. And I know we talked about boundaries, but it is breaking the boundaries and showing the next generation, wait, things don't have to be done the way they're always done, and they could be done differently.
I absolutely love that. Sabrina, I know you had your hand up.
Oh, thank you. That was nice. I'm going to do a low-key little brag to go along with this because I feel like I'm doing this in real time. I feel like I am showing up totally imperfect, not incredibly, totally knowing what I'm doing. And I'm very open with that. Women that have been fully showing up in my groups when they first start. I know Lauren was a part of a group that I started, and she was there with me on day 1. She's like, let's do it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And she's like, let's just fucking do it. And we're still rolling. We're still rolling, and I'm learning as I go. And I think it's so important for more females to do that. First of all, just being like, hey, I want to do this thing. I have no idea how to do this thing, but get a couple of people that are with you and on your side, ride or die, to jump in full force with you and hold your hand a little bit so that you're not so scared. And I wasn't expecting that. Sorry. In order to be a good example for other people, other women out there who have dreams, who have desires, who are dreaming big, but not certain about stepping into it because there's a couple of things that they don't know, or there's a couple of things that they're uncertain about, or they don't quite know all of the things yet. And I can tell you right now from personal experience, every single thing that I have done in my business over the decade, I did not know how to do it when I did it. I didn't do tons of research. I didn't dive deep for months and months and months trying to figure it out. I literally, and women here can attest to this, I literally will wake up at 4 a.m. with a brilliant idea, having no idea how to do it. I will email 10 of my closest females in the community and just say, hey, I just had a really freaking good idea at 4 a.m. and I'm going to do it. Are you in? Yes or no? 3 of them will message me back and be like, yeah, hell yeah, I will 100% show up for you with that. And that has been the trajectory of everything that I have built up to this point. And that includes, you know, the community, that includes me taking care of myself and my son, that includes, you know, us actually living. You know, I haven't had, since I left my ex and the life that I was leading before, I haven't had a job. I haven't had like a 9 to 5 where I'm checking in somewhere. It has been fully taken care of just by me digging in deep, being curious, figuring it out, getting messy and dirty, staying up till 3 a.m. trying to figure it out, emailing people questions, and just believing in myself, just trusting the process, listening to people like Jesse Itzler and Sarah Blakely that say, hey, listen, it's fucking messy in the beginning, but yeah, if you trust yourself, you dive in deep, if you do all the things, if you build a community, it'll come. And I trusted full force when I first started this that it will come. And you can see the trajectory of what has been built up to this point. And I can foresee what is coming. And I think that it's so important for so many more women just to say like, hey, I'm building something. And if you want to come join me, and it's going to be crazy, and it's going to be messy, and it's going to be uncertain. And that inspires other women to be able to do the same thing.
I absolutely love that. I love your heart, Sabrina. Like, this is the reason why I do. I love your heart. And I do think that that is a huge social standard, is everyone thinking that they need to do it alone, especially us women. We're not taught to ask for help. So, Tess, I know you had your hand up, and Lauren, I know you had your hand up after. So, Tess, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, well, I actually think it's beautiful what Sabrina just said, because I'll come back then to what actually the answer to your question I wanted to give to Kat's question, because I think I just want to say though, Sabrina, before answering that question, like you actually are the example of then that true leadership of where it's like being an example with collaboration, connection, and also every time we're here as a panel, like I think it's that idea that everyone shares, their successes, their expertise, and their vulnerability, also what they're struggling with. And I think especially you mentioned it earlier, Sabrina, especially for people who might be, a little bit more at the beginning of even journeys of self-development, that's so important, because it's not all easy, and it's never going to be, there's not going to be this end result of a perfect picture where there's no more suffering or no more pain ever, and everything is perfect, and we're just all successful leaders. And it's not that. Like, leadership is like, it's success, it's struggling, and it's not, oh well, now I'm struggling and then I'm successful. It's circular, it's happening, but you bring people together so that we can support each other, and we can all share that, both the successes and the struggles, and we can all help each other, like when people need it. And that was actually my answer to your question about like what I think is absolute BS, is that in society, a lot of the time you see who are the people are being idealized, are often the ones who show a certain image, right? If you look at certain influencers, and I'm not saying there's, some are really good, but some is like when it's like they portray this image of perfection. So it moves all these different things what already were mentioned. And then especially young girls, but also young boys, then they want to be that. But they see only that image. It's only the outside. It's only the perfectionist. I remember years ago, there was this thing in the UK where girls in class were asked, who do you want to be? And they all wanted to be footballers' wives. Because, and things like that, because it was like that image of they saw on TV, like, I don't know if I'm allowed to name names, like, Wayne Rooney or other people, and they were like, and you go like, oh gosh, no, like, come on, there's so much more. And it's not about like, again, if someone truly, if that's their dream, it's okay, it's not wrong, but it was that image that they were looking at, right? It was, and I think for me, it's like that difference, what you're showing, Sabrina, is like you can bring people together, you can create all that with your heart and your soul, with the good and the bad, with the imperfection, with the struggles, and everything can be there, instead of this image that people then think, oh, that's what I need to be, and look how perfect they are, their perfect lives. When you see that with actors and other things, when you then look behind and then the true story comes up, and then we see that as the, oh, look, see, they are not so good after all. Whereas like, no, that's, they're being real, because they're not just that image what we see. They're not just the whole success story and all these other things. They're everything. They also are, we all are human beings with good, bad, and everything. So I think that is the part where I think BS, where we create this image of leadership too, whether it's masculine or female or anything, that it's like about, again, if you step up into leadership, as if it's all about the success you're showing for. So to women, I would also say, again, look within. If it is being a CEO of a company and you're doing a 6-figure business, fine, go and do it. But if for you it is like you're just barely being able to get food on the table, but you are happy and you're doing your things, doesn't matter. The success is not like the bank account and all the other stuff and the outside image only.
Thank you, Tessa. I absolutely love that. Lauren, I know you had your hand up. So.
Thanks. So I love all of these like sort of big picture things. I'm going to go like really small picture on this. In the corporate world, there is a BS rule that nobody talks about, but everybody does, or a lot of people do, where women are put in charge of ordering lunch, organizing the party, cleaning up the conference room, making sure that all the materials are set up for the meeting, right? And sometimes that is legitimately your job, right? If you are an assistant, if you are running a meeting and you don't have an assistant or you don't have a team, absolutely. But growing up, I developed 2 automatic answers. Thank you and yes, right? So somebody gives you a compliment that's actually a backhanded compliment or an insult disguised as a compliment, and you say thanks, and then your brain is like, wait, that was mean, right? And they say like, oh, you're a good little assistant. And you're like, thanks. And then you're like, wait a minute, that wasn't nice. Or they say, Lauren, can you take care of ordering lunch? You take a moment to think. And is that my responsibility? Is that not my responsibility? And learning to say no. I could tell you 42 ways to say no. No, thank you. No, that's not my role. No, that belongs to Sabrina. No, I'm shocked you would ask me that, right? The audacity level goes up. But learning to stick within your role or stretch to something that's actually going to develop you, instead of being in that traditional woman role in the corporate office and cooking and cleaning, essentially, because you think that's your job.
So Lauren, you're talking boundaries.
I am talking boundaries. Yeah. And thanks for saying that, because it's almost like I paid you to, because that leads me to my question. And I'm up. So well done. It's like we rehearsed. So we're all talking from a place of having come into our leadership. We are all women who are on this panel because we have gotten it. And I would venture to guess that we have also all been women who didn't get it at some point, right? And there was some sort of shift. And whether that was recognition, whether that was boundary setting, whether that was an opportunity someone else gave you, I would love to know from this panel, what was a turning point for you? And I'd love a personal story and not something we've done for our clients, because again, that sort of elevates us to like, oh, we've already got it all figured out. We're unattainable. And we're not. We're all these imperfect beings. So what was a turning point for you in your career, in your life, that made you recognize, I am a leader, I can set boundaries, I can do all of this? Karen, your hand went up so fast. I'll go with you.
Well, because I'm living that now, because I literally do not have all my shit together ever. And I'm perfectly okay with that, first of all. But all the time, for the last 7 years that I've been doing isogenics specifically, is, even somebody said to me the other day, you're such a light. Like, people listen to me, and I was like, wow, people are listening to me? Like, people listen to what I have to say? Like, that was my own thought. And I'm putting stuff out there on social media and all the things and being vulnerable and whatnot. And I didn't have my enoughness, my worthiness. Like I didn't feel enough in my own myself. I didn't feel worthy of my own self. People, I just did an event a few months ago, and the guy had us sit in different places. So we met different people, and he's like, "What do you like most about the person?" And every single person said, "I like your energy." And I also didn't have receivership. Like I didn't understand, like I can receive the fact that people like my energy. Now I do. And the step that I was taking is recognizing, you talked earlier about noticing. So I was noticing that I was holding myself back in some way. I didn't know how, but I knew that I was holding myself back in life and business in general, and generally speaking. And so I made the decision and I took the action to take the step to find, not just, I was doing the videos and the personal development, even though and by the way, just a side note, I thought all this was hokey crap, but I knew I needed to make a change in my life. So I want to point that out for people who are listening. Also, you can be skeptical, but tiptoe a little bit and see if it's right for you. I just want to point that out. So I just took the step to find who I knew that would help me in that. And to Sabrina's point about seasons, like in that season it was this person, and now I've been working for the last year and a half with different people to change my thought process, because it's really about thought processes and working towards understanding that I am enough, I am worthy, and I am hugely powerful, and I do, like Dorothy, have the power within me, and I can receive the fact that my energy is contagious and people actually do want to listen to what I have to say. So all of those steps, and it's a continuous process, but it was also 1,000% the belief within myself that I didn't have, that people had within me, and working towards getting that belief. That's how
Karen, I love the way you talk about this, because you still sound kind of surprised. And I feel very much the same way, that sometimes I look at my life today and the things I've taken control over, and I say out loud, like 5 years ago me would be like, no way you're gonna do that. So good for you. Really, really powerful. Awesome. Who else has a story about coming into leadership? Kat.
Oh, so for me, I think the biggest piece of coming into leadership was actually when I made the decision to leave my abusive relationship. That was the time that I decided to take back my thoughts instead of believing into other people's thoughts. And from that, actually ended up leading into me learning how to not be as much of a people pleaser in the work that I did. So I worked in the medical field before, and it allowed me the space to start looking at things and saying no, right? Or coming up with something that's made me feel better to not take on a task that was not mine, which actually ultimately led into me realizing that I was building somebody else's business, and my boundary stopped there. And that's when I actually got into the world of entrepreneurship and decided that if I had been through all the shit I had already been through, excuse my language, that I could do freaking anything. And why would I continue to build other people up and their businesses when I could create my own?
Amazing. Elena. You're on mute.
Sorry. For me, it was through work. I started working for a cruise line, and I started working in the department that was working with the entertainers. So it was the cruise department, you know, what you see on Love Boat. And then I decided to apply for a training position because I had been doing that before. And instead, I got interviewed for a human resources position. Now, I didn't have a human resources background, but I had the ship experience and I had done coaching. And so I was trained to do this, and I was thrust on a ship with 750 people. And I was the only human resource presence on board. So I dealt with really big issues and I dealt with really small issues from everybody. And it was very similar to what Karen said. I had a lady I had helped came to me one day and she said to me, "I want you to know that you're pillar of light. And the way you helped me with my situation, she was Kiwi. She was from, what's it called? New Zealand. And she was like a wise woman in her country. And she said, I took what you said to me and I spread it to 30 people. So I want you to know that you're this pillar of light who's changed my life." And I was like in tears because it was so shocking. Are you talking to me? exactly as you said, Lauren. Are you talking to me? So this was quite a few years ago, but it gave me the confidence to realize that I was starting to grow into myself. And this role was very challenging, and it really pushed me in many ways and stretched me, and it wasn't always easy. But it was after that first 5-month contract, when I was on the ship for 5 months dealing with every single problem you can imagine, that I started to finally feel like I had landed into myself.
I love hearing 3 distinctly different ways of coming into leadership. There's not just one way to do it. There's not just 100 ways to do it. There's so much choice in how we come into ourselves and how we decide we want to be leaders. Who else? Tessa. And then Sabrina.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Lauren. That's so nice to hear everyone's story. Because I was really thinking about it as well. And I think I still struggle with what Karen mentioned as well, and others about that. Not even so much believing in myself. I always said there's 2 things, like definitely rationally, like I know I'm a leader and I know I do good work with people. I know I help people. Yet there is still that feeling of always, at the same time, there's the feeling of who am I? And how come? Or and there's times like and especially at times where I'm struggling. And the funny thing is that, like, in all my work, like with healing, with coaching, with other things, it's always been that nearly that conflict between my intuition knowing, like, being there, like still holding space for people, and rationally feeling as like, oh, who am I to do this? And am I really right to do this? I've had several times in my life where like things for myself fell apart again. And then I felt I should be able to deal with this better because, hey, I've done like, I can give you a list of like both MA, BA, I don't know what, and courses and other things, and then self-development I've gone through, and certain traditions where I've been trained in also really experiential, like I've gone through it myself. I can say that, and yet there's still days and times where I go through things and I can't cope with it, or not fully, like as I said, like more recently, this year for me has been a really tough year, like, it's like breakup from an abusive relationship, having another relationship that also broke up, and it triggered so much, and I completely collapsed and I couldn't do my job anymore. And I also was like, I was fully self-employed, and that part I could still do, and then I had to take a job, an employed job as well, because to pay rent, and I felt like such a failure. Right? I was like this is not, and then 2 things happened. Like, one was in my employed job was actually social work, so it's kind of related to what I do, and that job was actually offered to me, which I also found a bit like, really weird. And I was like, why would do they want me? And then I remember, like, when things collapsed earlier, and for a while I like, I was really struggling. I cried every day, and I was like, this is absurd. I should be able to cope with this. And my manager actually said, because I said, this is ridiculous. And she said, yeah, but there's so much happened. And I said, well, I'm just so grateful for this job. And she said, yeah, but we're really grateful for you. It's so great. Like, you are a real, like, you are bringing us stuff. Like, and I was like, oh, wait, what? Wait, me? I am bringing something to this? Really? And then someone else as well, like in my own students. Like, I remember when I set up last year, started with a group of people, we created a community where we come together, where we really talk about things. And one of them said, yeah, but what you've created is a movement. And I was like, what? I've created a movement? Are you kidding me? Because I was like, what would you call it? Is it coaching? Is it healing? What are we doing here? She said, it's a movement. And, and I was like, oh, wow. And so I think, again, also for people to realize that sometimes it's okay to hear that. But again, the difference was, I sometimes feel dependent on external validation, but it was external, but I wasn't asking for it. So it was different. Right. So I think as well that learning. So for me, it was learning to actually listen to that and actually see. And that helped me to step into as well, learning more to my intuition, that I know even through like, even now, like even the days where I was really struggling, I noticed when people came to me, like especially professionally, I could still really hold space. And it was just my mind saying like, oh, I should not be doing this because it's not fair, because look, I'm a fraud, because I'm still. And I was like, no, this is my strength. This is where I'm a leader. And it was actually through somebody who's done a lot of work with trauma, where they talk about wounded healer. And I always felt a little bit like arrogant to embrace. And now I'm like, no, okay, I am. This is what I am. And that's really helped me. So I think it's, again, that's falling back into who you truly are, but also accepting when other people validate you, not because you're dependent on it, not because you're by looking at, because it's a gift to you to show you something you don't see in yourself.
Tessa, you said three words that that really caught my ear. One is should, one is intuition, and one is compliments. And I think those three are so tied together, and you brought them together so beautifully. We tend to dismiss a compliment, right? And think, oh, that was a one-time thing. And then we believe what we think is bad. And our intuition comes first. And if anybody's done intuition work, like, your gut tells you, and then your brain tells you what you should do. And so you really demonstrated that so well, Tessa, in like, if you can trust yourself and your leadership and your power and your intuition, and not get interrupted by the should or the survival mechanism or the saboteur or whatever term you want to give it, there's so much opportunity to listen to a compliment, genuinely be grateful for it, and internalize it. And know that there are great things about you, that you are changing somebody's world. You're probably changing many somebody's worlds by just being you. And there's so much opportunity to shut down those shoulds and decide what you're gonna do and how you're gonna be. Sabrina, I know you wanted to go as well.
Yes. So just like with Tessa there, I have, and I'm sure all of us have, just several different examples of when we re-realized that we were in a leadership role. But I want to say that the first one that I could think of that really hit me was, a lot of people don't know this, but my ex and I ran a door-to-door company over 6 different states, or 5 different states, 6 different offices. And I was in charge of hiring, recruiting, and training anywhere between 50 to 150, predominantly men, straight commission door-to-door sales reps. Not the easiest endeavor, but I freaking loved it. I owned that space, and I did so good at building that company up in its sales arena. But as most of you know, when I left my ex, I eventually left him. I obviously also left the company. And I remember distinctly one day, months before I left, my ex had come into the office. He'd said something rude. I got emotional, which happened often. And there was a few people in the office, which also happened often, where he would do it right in front of people, just demean the crap out of me. And I got emotional. A few people noticed. And one of them said, like, how much longer are you going to put up with this? Now, mind you, I was already planning on leaving. My plan of leaving took 4 years. And I was already saving. I was already like on my way out, but hadn't really told anybody. But I knew I was getting close to the date. And so that person was like, why do you keep doing this? Like, how much longer are you going to take this? And I was like, well, there was a few people that I was kind of close to, maybe like 4. I was like, well, to tell you the truth, I am leaving. And they were like, wait, what? And I was like, I am leaving, like, soon. I've already got my stuff planned. I would appreciate if you didn't say anything, but if you do say something, it doesn't really matter because I'm already ready financially. And one of the guys said, this entire company is going to collapse when you leave. And freaking was so, like, I knew that. But to hear somebody else say it was just so, like, what would that word be? Reassuring. I don't know what that word would be, but it felt really good. And that was a turning point. But then what was the real turning point is when I did actually leave. And then hearing, because I was still friends with everybody, everyone kept in contact with me, and hearing the feedback of one office closed, another office closed, these vehicles were sold, and realizing the shrinkage that was happening immediately within months of me leaving, because I was running the entire company by myself. So it sounds bad because it's like I'm almost like, what would that word be? Relishing in like his his demise, but feeling good, that company was as stable and as strong and moving forward like it was because of my leadership.
That is so inspiring. And I think you get to relish in it a little bit, because sometimes we recognize our leadership better in retrospect, right? And then we can take that forward and decide what we want to do next. And I love your story. And I know we don't have time for the whole story today, but if you haven't seen Sabrina's story, get in all of Sabrina's stuff, and just, you will be inspired and amazed. And every time I talk to you, I learn more and love you more. So, Geeta, did you want to add something?
Yeah, actually, I think as a coach and as a mentor coach and as a leader, what I have become today, I think one of the, like you said, you were asking me when was the time when I thought like I'm really turning up and people are looking me as an inspiration. And that was the day when I started to work on myself, not to react on a situation and start to respond. So that was the biggest and the most significant thing I learned about everything or anything in your life as a leader, that you stop reacting to situations. How people are, they have their own perceptions. And I started responding. So rather than, like, as a leader, I mean, we have to learn somewhere, because there's so much as like people are adoring you, people are looking up to you, and you have to find your ways how you can maneuver yourself through that. And like Karen was saying, learning that, oh wow, am I doing this? Why people are calling me up and saying all that to me? That was such wonderful. I would put it as a blissful feeling, because that was cannot be explained in words. I don't know how to express it. When people come up to you and they literally believe in you, that I want to become like you or something. And after that, then the day when I started responding to it in much the way I wanted to, more authentically, the things started to shift big time. Like your whole mindset changes. You become a leader without even knowing that you're a leader. Like something was Tessa was saying, at home you're a leader without even knowing you're a leader, right? When you're telling your kids, or Kat was saying, when I tell my boys or something, everybody's a leader, somewhere. So that was the thing which I really wanted to share. Thank you.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And it speaks to what I had mentioned earlier about that automatic yes, that automatic thank you. That's the reactive. So if you can take that pause, like you just said, respond instead of react, you're so much more in choice. You're so much more happening to the situation instead of having it happen to you. Amazing. Thank you. Karen.
I just wrote something down as Geeta was talking, and it just popped into my mind. So I know you were talking about, a turning point, but I just thought of something, like, because I'm a mom, I have 2 kids. Like, as a parent, there's books, what to expect when you're expecting, and all these things, and we're encouraged, and we do, like, because there's no manual. Like, what the hell do you do when you have a kid? Oh my God, this kid's totally relying on me. Huge realization when I had my daughter, because she's older. But my point is, like, as parents, we ask questions, we ask for advice. What did you do? How did you get this kid to sleep? All of those things, we ask questions. And in leadership, in corporate, in different areas other than parenting, we don't necessarily do that as much. So I think it's important to know that, we're doing it. It's okay to ask advice. It's okay. Sabrina said she emailed people. She asked questions. She had no idea what the hell she was doing. But you're curious. You're curious and asking questions, and it lends to back asking for help. But it should be encouraged in that respect as well, to do all of that in the leadership realm, and just in generally speaking, entrepreneurship, whatever it may be, because that's just equally important. I mean, here we are on this leadership panel, and I'm getting, like, I've been writing furiously, just ideas, thinking, content, just all these other things that are coming into my mind. And I think that's also important too. It's like, we do it in one realm, why can't we do it in all the realms? It just should all blend together.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate that, Lauren, for holding space for that great question. This was absolutely phenomenal. I thank every single one of you for being here, for hanging out and speaking on this subject of leadership. We had a high of 101 individuals watching today, so that was super cool. And to really hone in again on this leadership thing and just jumping in and just owning it, despite where you are in your journey. You know, when I first started these impact panels, we'd have a high of 2 or 9 or 13. You know, and then it went up to 52 and then went up to 69 and then it went up to, you know, 80, and just stepping into it, not knowing what it would look like, owning it as a leader. And I don't know if any of you were here for my very first like 3 impact panels that I ran. Again, having no idea what I was doing. The emails that I would send out would be so long. They're like 15 pages long of like description and the detail of what was going on, because I was just so nervous about people coming on and not knowing what to do and what if they did it wrong and all of this stuff. And then as I've gone through, really trusting that people are competent and that they know how to do all of the things. I think Lauren was in my first couple of, the emails were so long and detailed and highlighted like crazy. But, and then also the first few impact panels I did were messed up. Like the first one I did, I had the directions. So for those of you listening, before we go live, I have directions at the bottom here of to the ladies that just says like, make sure you're centered in your screen and make sure that you can hear each other and make, you know, all these directions. And I went live with the directions on the screen for like the first 5 minutes of this, just like, hey guys, this directions to my ladies. That was like my first 1, 2, 3. And then another one, I like read a different script. I was like talking about a different subject because I keep my scripts, you know, saved on my computer. And I had a different script from like the previous impact panel. And I was like halfway through, I'm like, wait a minute, we're not talking on this subject. We're talking on another subject. I had to go find the other script. But it's like, and then afterwards, feeling that feeling of like, I messed up or I screwed up or these ladies probably think I'm ridiculous. And then just the embarrassment of the audience. Like, yeah, was there 9 people watching or, you know, 19 people watching? Yeah, but still it's there and it's live and I didn't take it down and I just owned it and it just is what it is. And if you go back and you watch, they're still there. But that's what being a leader is. A leader is recognizing that, hey, listen, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to step into it. And there's going to be mistakes and I'm going to mess things up and people are going to have opinions and they are going to say things and they are going to, you know, think certain things about you, but you have to do it anyways. And if being a leader is something that is in you, is something that you're feeling, is something that you need to step into, that you feel like you have to step into, you just have to recognize that there is going to be hiccups. That's just part of it. But being able to kind of rehash those now, you know, a long time later, and be able to reassure other women that are listening now currently that, hey, you're doing okay. You're doing all right. And you're going to mess up and you're going to screw up and you just have to do it again. That's what I kept saying. I just kept showing up. I just kept doing it again. Like one of these is going to turn out correct where the whole thing goes great. And then look, here we are today. The whole thing went perfectly. Everyone showed up. We're on point, no hiccups at all. And that's because we just kept showing up over and over and over and over again. And that's what it takes. So thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version. Thank you, ladies, for being here. I hope that you received some awesome tips on leading as a female heading into 2023. I know I did. These women, along with others, take time to open up about parts of their lives in order to inspire the world and give back. If you resonated with any of them, please follow and reach out to them. If you have an amazing story to share, you can always reach out to me at hernation.life. All of this ladies' information is in the ticker bar below. So anybody that you did resonate with, make sure that you take the time to screenshot and get their information of their website. And then they're also in the description below wherever you're watching. If you just scroll, you can, I think a lot of them are tagged too, or you can actually follow them. And then you can also check out their website, drop into their DMs, drop into their contact information on their website. We here at Her Version, Her Nation is all about connecting, all about rising and building community. So wherever you see fit. Thank you so much, everyone. As always,